The air in the conference room stopped before the words did. The vent in the ceiling gave a weak rattle, then fell silent. The faint hum of the air conditioning faded, and suddenly 50 people could hear each other breathing. Glass walls, a long walnut table, screens frozen mid-slide above the city of Seattle. At the far end of the table, Adrian Cole stood with one hand on the back of a leather chair, dark suit pressed tie loosened half an inch, as if this was just another meeting. His eyes were on the only man in the room not wearing a suit. Ethan Reyes stood near the door, work boots leaving faint marks on the polished floor, navy coveralls zipped halfway, tool bag in one hand. A smudge of dust streaked his wrist where he had wiped his face earlier. His name sounded too loud when Adrian spoke. "Ethan Reyes, you are fired." The words did not echo. They hit and sank. For a second, no one moved. No throat cleared, no chair creaked. One of the board members blinked, the only sign that time was still moving. Ethan felt every eye slide to him, some in surprise, some in relief, some refusing to meet his. He felt the strap of his tool bag cutting into his shoulder, the sweat cooling along his neck now that the air vents had gone quiet. He tried to swallow. His mouth was dry. A notification buzzed in his pocket, the vibration against his leg sharpened the silence. He did not need to check to know it was his neighbor. She only texted during the day for two things: Lily is fine or Lily is wheezing. Ethan kept his hand at his side. "Leave your badge with security on your way out," Adrian said. His voice was flat, even the same tone he had used earlier when talking about numbers and market share. No raised voice, no anger, just a decision. A director at the far end shifted in her seat, as if she might say something, then picked at a pen instead. The head of HR looked down at his folder. Miles Thornton, the engineering manager, lowered his gaze to the table, jaw tight. Ethan caught the flicker of something in his eyes. Guilt, or relief, or both. Ethan waited for some explanation, some line about company policy or violation of procedure. It did not come. Adrian kept looking at him as if he were watching for a reaction, some crack in the surface. Ethan only managed a small nod. Anything more, and his voice might betray him. His fingers tightened around the handle of his tool bag. Metal dug into his palm. "That is all," Adrian said. Chairs scraped. Conversation started in low, careful tones. Laptops closed. No one came toward him. People simply flowed around him on their way out. Jackets grabbed phones, checked. Gyoko reborn at the edge of the room, where the tension thinned. The vent above them hissed back to life. Cool air brushed his face. Ethan stepped aside to let a line of executives pass. One of them brushed his shoulder and muttered without looking at him, "Sorry, man." Ethan was not sure which part the man was sorry for. The firing, the fact that he had been there to see it, or the fact that by this time tomorrow he would have forgotten Ethan's name. He turned toward the glass. Through it he could see the city spread out under a sky the color of wet concrete. The rain against the windows came in faint streaks, almost gentle at this height. His phone buzzed again. This time he pulled it out, glancing at the text. Lily coughing a little, using the mask. She asked if you were fixing the big building today. He stared at the screen until the letters blurred, then slid the phone back and walked out of the room. The hallway outside the conference room was quieter, lined with framed awards and glossy photos of Halcyon Dynamics at product launches, ribbon cuttings, charity galas. He studied none of them. His reflection moved across the glass, in each frame a tired man in coveralls stepping past smiling faces and champagne flutes. At the end of the hall, he hit the elevator button and waited. The doors opened with a soft chime. As he stepped inside, the smell shifted. The faint coffee and cologne of the executive floor gave way to colder recycled air, tinged with the metallic hint of too many wires and too much glass. His finger hovered over the panel for a second, then pressed G, ground, out. The doors closed on his reflection. For a moment, as the elevator began to move, the mirrored walls seemed to tilt, and he saw not the man with a tool bag, but another version of himself, years younger, wearing a badge with a different logo and a sharper haircut. Lines of code glowed in memory. A different kind of hum filled his ears. He shut his eyes and exhaled slow long. The elevator dropped. The day before had started like all the others in a place that smelled of old paint and boiled coffee. In the small kitchen of his apartment, the light above the sink was more yellow than white. It buzzed quietly, a tired sound that matched the rest of the building. The window let in the rattle of the early train, the one that cut through the neighborhood at dawn, shaking dust from the ceiling. Ethan sat at the table, a plastic nebulizer machine in front of him. Its clear mask covered half of Lily's face. Her eyes were large and serious above it, lashes damp from the coughing fit that had woken her. The machine hummed. A soft stream of mist drifted up inside the mask and curled out at the edges. Lily breathed the wheeze in her chest, slowly shifting from sharp to soft. "Is it almost done?" she asked, voice muffled. "Almost," he said. "Give it 2 more minutes." "Minutes are long," she complained. "That is what old people say," he answered. "I am 6, that is not old." He smiled. It was not a big smile, but it was real. "Then you can handle 2 minutes." She rolled her eyes, the gesture so exaggerated he almost laughed. On the back of her chair hung her yellow raincoat. It was too bright for the dim room, loud and cheerful with clouds and stars she had colored in with permanent marker. A crooked sun sticker peeled at one corner near the hood. She had insisted on wearing it every time it rained, even when it was too warm outside. "Rain bounces off superheroes," she had said once. So, they need armor. The nebulizer beeped and shut itself off. The hum stopped, and for a second the apartment fell silent, except for the distant train and the drip in the bathtub he still had to fix. Lily took off the mask, her cheeks flushed. She coughed once experimentally, then nodded as if satisfied. "See," Ethan said, "you are tougher than a machine." "I already knew that," she replied. She slid off the chair and ran to the fridge. A drawing was held there by a weak magnet. She pulled it down carefully and brought it over. It was the same one she had shown him a dozen times, though she always added something new. A tall glass building crowded the page, all straight lines and blue pen strokes. In front of it stood a figure with a hard hat and a tool bag, arms stretched out as if holding the whole thing up. She had written in green crayon along the bottom, "Super Fixer." "That is you," she said proudly. "That is the big building, the one with the clouds on top." He looked at the drawing. The man on the page stood straight, his shoulders back. He did not look tired. He did not have dark circles under his eyes. "Do I really look like that?" Ethan asked. "Yes," Lily said without hesitation, "except your hair is messier." He laughed softly. "You did not have a gray crayon." "You are not gray," she said. "You are just shiny." He touched her hair, smoothing it back. "You know, people at that building do not see me the way you do." She frowned. "They do not see you at all." "Not really," he said. "I am mostly behind the walls, in the ceilings, under the floors. Like a secret hero," she concluded. He shook his head. "Like a guy who knows how to use a wrench." She looked at the drawing, then at him. "You fix things that break. That is a hero." He glanced over at the stack of envelopes on the counter. Hospital bills, past due notices from the power company, a letter from some department with a name he did not like to think about. He folded the edge of the drawing gently and then folded it back, smoothing out the crease. "I will take this with me today," he said. "Put it in my bag." "You forgot it yesterday," she reminded him. "I will not forget today." He slid the paper into the flap of his tool bag, where it would show when he set the bag down. A small splash of color in beige hallways. He grabbed his jacket from the back of the door. It was too thin for the weather, but there was no heavier one in the closet. He checked his watch. If the bus did not come early, he would make it. If it did, he would have to run. As he bent to kiss Lily's forehead, he caught a glimpse of an older frame on the wall near the hallway. It was turned slightly, the glass dusty. Behind it, a certificate from a university, his name written in careful calligraphy. Next to it, hidden under a layer of takeout menus, was a badge from another life, the lanyard frayed. He looked away before his thoughts could follow. "Be good for Mrs. Calloway," he said. "I am always good," Lily replied. "That is not what she says." Lily giggled, a small burst of sound that stayed with him as he closed the door. Hours later, standing in a glass room high above the city, listening to the air conditioning cut out, and the CEO of Halcyon Dynamics say the words that would crack the ground beneath him, that laugh seemed very far away. Ethan stepped out of the elevator into the lobby, the same tool bag at his side, the same drawing folded inside. The marble floors shone under his boots. Outside, rain streaked the windows in fast, thin lines. He paused for a moment, watching the water race each other down the glass, then headed toward the security desk, his badge still clipped to his chest. The security desk sat in the center of the lobby, like a small island of plastic and glass in a sea of marble. Ethan walked toward it, every step a little too loud in his own ears. People in suits moved past him, heads bent over phones, badges flashing at hip level. No one looked twice at the man in coveralls heading for the exit. The guard on duty was the same one from that morning, a heavy-set guy with a buzz cut and a badge that read, Turner. He watched Ethan approach, then glanced almost nervously at the small panel to his left. On its screen, lines of status messages scrolled by. In the top corner, a cluster of zones showed normal. In his mind, Ethan could still see them, in orange numbers climbing. He set his tool bag down, unclipped his badge, and placed it on the desk. Turner cleared his throat. Rough up there. Ethan did not answer right away. His fingers rested on the edge of the laminate counter, the surface cool and smooth. He remembered gripping another edge earlier that day, the metal lip of a console, while a line of alarms lit up. We got through it, he said. Turner looked like he wanted to say more, then thought better of it. He slid the badge toward his keyboard, but did not scan it yet. You were here when it started, right? Turner asked quietly. The air thing, exec floor. Ethan's jaw tightened. The hum of the lobby, the tap of heels, the rain against the tall windows, all faded into the background. His mind went back to the small, cramped control room 3 floors below, where most people in the building never bothered to go. That morning, the room had smelled like burnt coffee and dust. A free mug from some software vendor sat on the console, half full of something that had been hot an hour earlier. The monitors flickered with the building management system, little digital diagrams of floors and chillers and pumps. A cheap fan in the corner spun lazily, pushing warm air around. Ethan sat in the rolling chair, one foot hooked around the leg to keep it from drifting, eyes scanning the screens as a habit more than a necessity. It was early. Most of the building was still empty. The lines were calm and steady. The radio on his belt crackled. Facilities, this is front desk. Heads up, executive floor wants confirmation that everything is stable before the board arrives. He picked it up. This is Ethan. We are green on all zones. Tell them we are good. Copy. Halcyon is green, the receptionist said. He clipped the radio back and took another sip of bitter coffee. Of course we are green, he muttered. Behind him, the door opened with a tired wheeze of hinges. Miles Thornton walked in, tie already loosened, hair damp as if he had run his hands through it, one time too many. He always looked like he had slept in his office, even on days when Ethan knew he had not. You are here early, Ethan said without turning. Executives panic if they see a thermostat tick above 72 when there are investors in the building, Miles replied. He dropped a stack of folders on the small side desk. They are expecting the board of the defense guys and some international observers. Cole is on edge. Ethan glanced over his shoulder. He did not look like a guy who gets on edge. You have not been in the same room with him when something goes wrong, Miles said. His tone was joking, but there was a tightness around his mouth. He stepped up beside Ethan and squinted at the screens. Show me the executive floor. Ethan typed a few commands. The display shifted to a floor plan near the top of the tower, little rectangles marking each zone. The numbers beside them were steady cool. We are good, Ethan said. We adjusted the schedules last week. It is all balanced. Miles nodded, though his eyes flicked over the settings with a restless kind of energy. He tapped at the edge of the console with 2 fingers, a nervous habit Ethan had noticed months ago. Just keep an eye on it, Miles said. Today is not the day for surprises. He left with the same quick, half-shuffling walk, muttering about someone double-booking a conference room. For a while, nothing happened. Ethan answered a call from a janitor about a stuck door on 12. He logged a work order for a faulty light on 5. He sent a quick text to Mrs. Calloway to check on Lily. Then a small sound sliced through the room, a soft high chime different from the usual background beeps. On the main monitor, one of the zones on the executive floor flashed yellow, then orange. The temperature beside it ticked up. 73, 74, 76. He straightened, moved closer to the screen, hands hovering over the keyboard. Another chime. Another zone shifted color. What are you doing? He whispered, as if the system could hear him. He pulled up the log. Commands scrolled by in a neat line, each marked with a time and a user tag. The set point for the affected zones had been changed at 3:17 in the morning, from 68 to 84. Not a glitch, a manual override. The user tag was familiar, an engineering account, one level above his own, one that he did not have the password for. Miles Thornton. The radio on his belt crackled again, this time with more urgency. Facilities front desk. Executive floor is calling. They say it feels like a sauna up there. Behind that voice faint, another voice cut in, clipped and controlled. This is Cole. I want someone in the control room now. I am in the control room, Ethan said into the radio. I see the issue, working on it. He began to type, trying to reverse the settings, but the override for those zones was locked to the user that had set it. He could see the numbers, but each attempt to adjust them returned the same message. Access denied. Footsteps pounded in the hall. The door flew open and Miles burst in, face-flushed tie further loosened. What happened? He demanded. You tell me, Ethan said. He pointed at the log. Your account raised the set points at 3:17. Exec zones are cooking. Miles froze for one moment, just long enough for Ethan to see something sharper than confusion in his eyes. I did not touch that, Miles snapped. Maybe something glitched. Maybe you misread it. They are roasting up there. Cole just called. He wants a name. He stepped around Ethan and jabbed at the keyboard, as if hitting the keys harder would change the system's mind. You are going to lock it up if you keep doing that, Ethan said. Miles rounded on him. You touched those units last night. You did the filter check. You did the calibration. On a separate tree, Ethan replied. Across the hall, not this one. Radio chatter filled the room. Fragments of words, impatient voices. Board delegation is on their way up. Investors are already in the lobby. Conference starts in 10. Miles ran a hand through his hair that left it standing almost straight. He wants someone in the room, Miles said. You know what that means. Ethan did know. He imagined the glass walls, the long table, the number of important people who were currently sweating through expensive suits because the air system had turned on them. He imagined Lily small in her yellow raincoat walking down a wet sidewalk, counting the cracks, believing her father was a man who could fix anything. If we show him the log, Ethan began. Miles laughed short and flat. You think he cares about logs right now? He cares about optics. He wants someone to say, I screwed up, so he can say, we handled it. Silence stretched. The monitors kept blipping. The zones were climbing into the 80s now. You are the last man who touched the system, Miles said. His voice softened half a notch, but his eyes stayed hard. It is your name or mine. I have 3 kids in college, Ethan, a mortgage, a wife who does not work. Ethan thought of his own bills folded in a drawer. He thought of Lily's inhaler, the price tag still printed on the side of the carton. The intercom crackled, a new voice filling the room. This is Cole, control room report. Miles looked at Ethan. You can fix it, Ethan said. You know the settings. I will talk to Cole. He picked up his tool bag. The strap slid into its usual groove across his shoulder. The drawing inside the flap rustled. Miles did not thank him. He only stepped closer to the console, eyes glued to the numbers as if he could will them down. Ethan left the room and took the service elevator up. By the time he stepped into the executive corridor, the air in the hallway already felt thicker. The carpet muted his boots. Framed abstract art lined the walls. At the far end, a pair of glass doors led into the conference room. He could see through them. Board members, investors. The kind of visitors who arrived with entourages sat fanning themselves with agenda packets. A few had loosened ties. One woman had pulled her hair up with a pen. Adrian stood near the head of the table, jacket off, shirt sleeves rolled. He did not look flustered. He looked contained. A facilities director with a clipboard hovered by the door, face pale. There he is, she whispered when she saw Ethan. The tech. Cole asked for the tech. Ethan stepped into the room. The hum of conversation dropped. Every face turned. The air was too warm, flavored with cologne, an expensive perfume, and the faint plastic tang of hot electronics. A bead of sweat slipped down Ethan's back under his coveralls. Adrian watched him for a long heartbeat, then spoke. Who is responsible for the system failure on this floor? He asked. The words were simple, but something in the way he said responsible made them heavier. The facilities director started to speak, then faltered. A junior engineer near the wall looked at his shoes. Someone in the back shifted the legs of a chair, scraping the floor. Ethan could almost see their lives in small flashes. A picture of a toddler on one man's phone lock screen, a daycare tag on a woman's keyring, a vacation photo from some crowded theme park peeking out of a folder. He could hear Lily's wheeze in his mind. The nebulizer machine humming on the kitchen table, her saying rain bounces off superheroes. None of them had changed the settings. None of them had their name on the log. None of them had walked into that control room this morning to see access denied blinking back. He had. He squared his shoulders. His throat felt tight. I am, he said. The room held its breath. Adrian studied him, eyes steady, as if measuring the space between the words and the man who had spoken them. Then, Adrian said, every syllable clear, you are fired. There was a slight rustle as people shifted, but no one interrupted. No one spoke up to say it was too harsh. The decision rested there, solid and immovable. After a moment, Adrian turned away from the table. That is all, he said to the room. He waited while chairs scraped and conversations resumed. As the cluster of important people filed past, a few glanced at Ethan, then away. To them, he was already part of the background again. When the room had mostly emptied, Adrian stopped near him, close enough that Ethan could see the small lines at the corners of his eyes, the faint shadow of stubble where the morning shave had missed a spot. Adrian's voice dropped so only Ethan could hear. Be here at 7 tomorrow, he said. We are not finished. Then he walked out, leaving Ethan alone in the warm humming room, the words settling in beside the weight of everything he had just lost. The warmth of the conference room finally loosened its grip as Ethan stepped back into the elevator. He punched the button for the lobby and let his hand fall to his side. The doors closed. His reflection stared back at him in the mirrored panel coveralls, smudged shoulders, slightly hunched eyes, too alert for someone who had just been told his job was gone. He watched the floor numbers count down. By the time the doors slid open, the world had shifted again. The lobby light was cool and clean. The murmur of voices floated up from the marble floor. The massive glass wall showed Seattle under a darker sky, rain falling in steadier sheets now. Turner was still at the security desk, fingers on the keyboard. He looked up when he heard the elevator. "You never answered my question," he said softly. Ethan walked over and set his badge on the counter. The plastic rectangle looked smaller off his chest. "It was rough," he said. "You can scan it now." Turner hesitated. He picked up the badge, turned it in his hand, then finally tapped it against the reader. The panel flashed red. "Account terminated," the screen said in small, merciless letters. Turner winced. Guess they meant it. Guess they did. Turner slid the badge into a drawer, as if putting it somewhere out of sight could make any of it less harsh. "I heard it on the radio," he said quietly. Cole was pretty direct. "Direct is one word," Ethan replied. He shifted his tool bag onto his other shoulder. The flap flipped up for a second, and he caught a glimpse of Lily's drawing, the corner of the page creased where the magnet had once held it. For a heartbeat, the conference room, the logs, the alarms all blurred into a single question he could not answer. "I should go," he said. Turner nodded. "Good luck out there, Reyes." He did not know what to say back to that, so he only nodded once and turned toward the doors. Near the revolving entrance, he stopped in front of the glass and looked at the rain. People hurried past on the sidewalk. Outside, coats pulled tight, umbrellas tilted to fight the wind. Taxi lights cut through the haze. The city did not slow because one man had lost his job. He reached for his jacket collar and pulled it up as a thin defense, then pushed through the door into the wet air. Cold hit his face. In seconds, his hair was damp and beads of water clung to his sleeves. He walked toward the bus stop, the pavement slick under his boots, his breath misting in front of him. 2 blocks away, under a shelter with scratched plexiglass and a faded route map, he checked his phone. Mrs. Calloway had written again. "She is better, coughing less. I gave her soup. It is pouring. She said you took her coat so you would not get soaked." Ethan frowned. He pictured the yellow raincoat on the back of the kitchen chair that morning, then remembered Lily insisting he take it instead. "It is magic," she had said as she shoved it at him. "If you wear it, the rain will not hit me either." He had laughed, but he had folded it and stuffed it into his bag. Somewhere between the apartment, the control room, and the conference floor, he had taken it out and hung it on the back of a chair to dry. He looked down now. His jacket was dark with water. His bag was zipped tight. The bright yellow that should have been there was not. His mind traced the path, the break room on the service level, the back of his chair near the lockers, or the hook by the vending machine where he had left it when he had run upstairs in a hurry. He imagined Lily tomorrow standing by the door, small hand on the empty hook, asking for a coat that was not there. The bus approached, tires spraying water. It stopped in front of him, doors folding open with the heavy sigh of compressed air. Ethan should have stepped on. Instead, he took a step back. The driver blinked at him. "You getting in?" "Not yet," Ethan said. He turned and started walking the way he had come, rain soaking into his collar, the city light smearing on the wet sidewalk. By the time he reached Halcyon Tower again, the lobby was thinner. Fewer people moved across the marble. The evening crowd had already left, and the night shift had not fully arrived. From outside through the glass, he could see Turner at the desk. Behind him, on a low stool near the wall, a splash of yellow caught his eye. Lily's coat. It was crumpled where someone had dropped it after finding it somewhere. It did not belong. The crooked sun sticker on the hood was still peeling at the edge. Ethan stepped inside. His boots squeaked faintly on the floor. Turner looked up, surprise crossing his face. "Reyes," he said, "you forget something." "My kid's coat," Ethan answered. "The yellow one. She is with my neighbor. She walks to school. I do not want her getting sick again." Turner glanced over his shoulder at the coat, then back at the monitor. "I cannot let you pass the desk," he said. "I do not need past the desk," Ethan replied. "It is right there." Turner shifted in his chair. "Your badge is dead. You are not in the system anymore. If the cameras catch you past this line, I get written up. They check everything around here." "It is a coat," Ethan said softly. "She is 6. Turner's hand hovered over the keyboard. The panel next to him displayed the security feeds, small windows of empty hallways, dark conference rooms, elevator doors sliding open and shut. "Look," Turner said, lowering his voice, even though no one stood nearby. "You are not supposed to be here at all. They already processed your termination. If someone upstairs decides to be picky, I am the one who gets it. Ethan looked past him at the little yellow shape on the stool. It seemed closer now that he knew he could not reach it. This building has $1 million worth of art on the walls, he said. I am not asking for any of that. He put both hands on the edge of the security desk, leaning just enough that Turner lowered his eyes in warning. Please, Ethan said. Turner swallowed. For a moment, the only sound was the rain against the windows, the soft hiss of the revolving doors, turning for a couple leaving with umbrellas. Rules are rules, Turner said finally. You know how it is. Ethan straightened. He did know. He turned toward the glass again. The reflection of the coat shone faintly in the polished floor. Outside, the rain had turned to a steady curtain. Lily would be asleep by now, her inhaler on the nightstand, her drawing still missing from the fridge. He felt the helpless anger rise, then fade. There was no one to direct it at in this moment. Turner was just a man in a chair doing what his rule book told him to do. Ethan let his hands drop to his sides. A voice spoke from behind him, cutting through the hush of the lobby. Open the doors. It was not loud. It did not need to be. It carried the same calm authority as earlier, only now it held a hint of impatience. Turner's back straightened. His eyes flicked past Ethan and went wide. Mr. Cole, he said. Ethan turned. Adrian Cole stood a few paces away from the entrance framed by the glass. His suit jacket was off. His white shirt was soaked through at the shoulders, dotted with dark circles where the rain had hit. He held no umbrella. Water dripped from his hair onto the polished floor, leaving small spots behind him. He must have come in from the street instead of using the underground garage. Sir, he is not cleared to be here, Turner began. Adrian did not look at the guard. His eyes were on Ethan, taking in the damp hair, the thin jacket, the way he had unconsciously positioned himself between the desk and the coat. I said open the doors, Adrian repeated. Turner swallowed and hit a button. The small gate between the desk and the lobby clicked. The lock light turned green. Ethan did not move at first. It seems you forgot something, Adrian said. Ethan forced himself to hold the man's gaze. My daughter's raincoat. Then get it, Adrian said. Ethan walked past the desk. The small gate swung inward when he pushed it. Up close, Lily's coat felt lighter than he remembered, but the fabric was cold and slightly damp. He picked it up and brushed off an invisible speck of dust. Thank you, he said, turning back. Adrian still watched him. There was no smile, no softening of features, but there was something different from the flat tone in the conference room. A kind of study. Do you always come back for things you forget? Adrian asked. Only the important ones, Ethan answered. Adrian's gaze flicked to the coat, then back to his face. If he had heard Turner's protests earlier, he did not comment. Have a good evening, Mr. Reyes, Adrian said. The formality of the name sounded strange after everything that had just happened upstairs. Ethan nodded once, clutched the coat, and walked toward the doors. As he stepped out into the rain again, he pulled the yellow fabric over his head. Drops slid off the plastic with small tapping sounds. His shoulders for the first time that day were dry. He walked the few blocks to the parking garage on autopilot. The concrete structure loomed beside the tower, its entrance a yawning rectangle of shadow and headlights. Inside, the air was cooler than the street, smelling of rubber and damp cement. His car sat on level 3 in the corner, where employees with lower access parked. The old sedan looked more tired than usual. Under the fluorescent lights, paint dulled a small dent on the rear bumper, catching the glow. In the trunk, a cardboard box waited with the things he had cleared from his locker. A spare pair of gloves. The worn manual he kept out of habit, a coffee mug with the Halcyon logo beginning to chip. He placed his tool bag on top and closed the trunk gently. For a moment, he simply stood there, listening to the distant whine of tires on the ramps, the drip of water from somewhere in the ceiling. He thought of the text from Mrs. Calloway. He thought of Lily asleep, believing that somewhere in the big glass building downtown, her father was still fixing things. The sharp sound of an engine echoed through the garage. Headlights curved around the ramp and swept over him, throwing his shadow long against the concrete wall. A black SUV with tinted windows rolled into view and came to a stop a few yards away. The driver's door opened. Adrian stepped out, suit still damp, tie loosened. He closed the door with a quiet click and walked toward Ethan's shoes, leaving faint wet prints. They stood facing each other in the half-light. You walked back out into that rain for a coat, Adrian said. You could have left it. It is not just a coat, Ethan replied. Adrian nodded once, as if that confirmed something. Get in, he said. We need to talk. The inside of the SUV smelled like leather and rain. Ethan slid into the passenger seat, Lily's yellow coat still clutched in his hands. Water dripped from the hem onto the rubber mat at his feet. Adrian closed his own door, the sound echoing off the concrete walls of the garage. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The engine idled softly. Wipers scraped once across the windshield, pushing away a sheet of water, only for another to replace it. Headlights from a car passing on the ramp glided over the dashboard, then disappeared. "You could have sent someone else," Ethan said finally. "I could have," Adrian replied. "I did not." Ethan looked out through the glass. The ramp out of the garage curved toward the street, toward buses and cheap dinners and overdue bills. The other way led deeper into the structure under the main tower. "Where are we going?" he asked. Adrian put the SUV in gear and steered away from the exit. "We are still at work," he said. They drove in a spiral descending. The overhead lights flickered past in intervals, white strokes across the windshield. Each level they passed was emptier than the one before. The painted numbers on the concrete columns dropped. 2, 1, B. At the lowest level, the ramp opened into a smaller area, cleaner than the rest. The concrete smoother, the oil stains fewer. A single metal door stood in the far wall beside a short row of parking spaces. A camera above it tracked the SUV as it rolled to a stop. Adrian killed the engine. "Bring the coat," he said. Ethan stepped out. The air down here was cooler, touched with the sharp, dry scent of filtered ventilation, rather than exhaust. He pulled the yellow coat over his shoulders again and followed Adrian to the door. There was no handle, only a small black panel beside the frame. Adrian took a narrow card from his pocket. It was not the standard white Halcyon badge. This one was matte black with no logo, only a recessed chip near the top. He tapped it to the panel. A light flicked from red to green. A small lens above the door glowed, scanning. "Look here," a disembodied female voice said. Adrian stared into the lens. A soft click sounded, then a keypad lit up, and he laid his hand across it. The pad hummed for a second, then went quiet. The door unlocked with a low, heavy clunk. Inside was a short hallway with bare concrete walls and recessed lights in the ceiling. At the end, an elevator waited. Its doors were pewter, darker than the brushed steel of the public lifts upstairs. When they stepped into the elevator, Ethan noticed the absence first. There were no buttons. No panel with floor numbers. No emergency stop. Only another black reader and a single vertical strip of light in the corner, dull and unlit. "Nice security theater," Ethan said. Adrian held his black card to the reader. The strip glowed blue. "It is not theater," he said. "This is the part of the building no one signs up for on a tour." The car began to move smooth and soundless. Ethan watched his reflection in the brushed metal. The yellow coat looked ridiculous next to Adrian's damp white shirt and dark slacks. He tugged the hood back, feeling suddenly conspicuous. "You looked at those logs this morning," Adrian said. "You saw that it was not an accident." "I saw a manual override with an account that did not belong to me," Ethan replied. "I saw you needed someone to blame fast. And you volunteered. I told you I was the last one in the room." Adrian shifted his weight slightly, one hand resting on the rail behind him. "Why did you say it was your fault when you knew it was not?" Ethan stared at the wall for a long beat, watching the faint vibration of the metal as the elevator climbed. He could lie. He could say that he panicked, that he misread the screen, that he believed in the moment that he had made a mistake. But the image of the conference room flashed up. The toddler on the lock screen, the daycare tag, the nervous eyes. "I know what it feels like when a paycheck disappears," he said, "when you count change at the supermarket and put things back on the shelf because you miscounted." He paused, the memory pressing against his ribs. "I know what it feels like when you cannot pay for medicine," he went on, "when you wonder if the job is going to be there next week. I am not the only one in that building who does." "You think the others do not have the same worries?" Adrian asked quietly. "I know they do," Ethan said. "That is the point." He looked at Adrian, then his voice rougher. "You fire one of them in that room, their whole life comes with it. Their kids, their partners, their parents. You fire me, you get the same effect, but I already know how to scrape by. I have done it before. So you step forward to make it easier." "It was going to be someone," Ethan said. "I could handle it." The elevator hummed. The strip of light shifted from blue to white. "You did not fight," Adrian said. "You did not even try to push it back on anyone else." "Would you have listened?" Ethan asked. Adrian did not answer that. The elevator slowed. With a barely audible chime, the doors opened. Cold air rolled in. The space beyond was not large, but it felt bigger than it was. The walls were glass on three sides, looking into rooms filled with equipment. The floor under their feet was a dark, solid surface that absorbed sound instead of reflecting it. The overhead lights were bright, but softer in tone than the office fluorescence, a clean daylight white. And everywhere there was the sound of machines. Not the clunky, broken rattles Ethan was used to in the maintenance spaces. This was a smooth, constant roar, like a river of air flowing behind walls. They stepped out of the elevator into what looked like an observation deck. One side overlooked a long hall lined with floor-to-ceiling server racks. Each rack blinked with rows of tiny lights, greens and blues, and occasional reds, as if someone had captured a field of fireflies and stacked them in tall glass boxes. On the opposite side, a massive screen covered most of one wall. It showed a dark map of something that was not any place on Earth. Nodes of light connected by fine lines, all overlaid on an abstract grid. Some nodes pulsed slowly, others flickered in rapid patterns. Ethan moved toward the screen without thinking, as if pulled. "What is this?" he asked. "Sentinel Grid," Adrian said. "Our crown jewel." He came to stand beside Ethan, hands in his pockets, eyes on the display. "Layered defense," Adrian went on. "Neural net adaptive always learning. Monitors everything from physical access to encrypted traffic. Think of it as a nervous system for any network you plug it into." The map shifted as he spoke, lights rearranging in response to invisible data. "Defense contracts love the idea," Adrian said. "Energy companies want it for their grids. Governments want it for everything. And other people want to steal it," Ethan said. Adrian gave a small nod. The map zoomed in. A cluster of nodes enlarged, each labeled with a string of numbers and letters. One of them bore a faint halo of orange. "That is the part I wanted you to see," Adrian said. He picked up a small remote from a ledge and tapped a button. The nodes froze. Lines of text appeared alongside one of them. Access logs, timestamps, data volume. Ethan leaned closer. His eyes tracked the entries with the old familiar focus he used to reserve for code reviews and network diagrams. "Small transfers," he said. "Very small. Every night, around the same time." The logs confirmed it. 15 kilobytes, 20, 8. Nothing that would raise alarms in a system tuned to catch large exfiltration attempts. Like tiny bites taken from the edge of something huge. 3 weeks, Adrian said. He clicked through a history of the node, flicking back day by day. Each one showed the same line, the same little pull. "If you take enough crumbs from a loaf," Ethan murmured, "you can smell the recipe." "Someone is teaching themselves how to bake," Adrian said, "using our oven." Ethan tracked the source tags. This was not some outside IP bouncing through proxies. This was internal. The access flag held a clearance level he knew well. "Whoever is doing this is inside," he said. "Not just inside the network, inside the company. They have high credentials." "Executive level," Adrian agreed. He tapped another button. The screen wiped to gray, then filled with a different interface. A login prompt flashed briefly, then gave way to a dashboard Ethan knew he should not be seeing. At the top in the corner was a name. Ethan Reyes. His old badge photo stared back at him, younger face, no lines yet around the mouth, hair shorter. The affiliation beneath read United States Cyber Defense Initiative. A logo sat beside it, a stylized Rampart wall. Beneath that, a list of clearances scrolled. Project Rampart, Facility Blackridge, Satellite Custodian. Words he had not seen in years. His stomach gave a strange twist. "Where did you get this?" he asked. Adrian did not look at him. He watched the screen, eyes taking in the details he already knew. "When you applied here, your background check stopped somewhere. It should not have," he said. "Too many blacked out sections. Too many locked files. I am allergic to blind spots." He clicked a tab. More documents appeared. A letter of commendation. A performance review that used phrases like exceptional pattern recognition and critical asset. "It took a while," Adrian said. "More phone calls than I wanted to make." Ethan's gaze lingered on one line of text. "Primary role, architect and coordinator of multi-vector intrusion detection systems for critical infrastructure." He almost laughed. The sound stuck in his throat. "That was another life," he said. "It looks like the same one to me," Adrian replied. "It is not." Ethan stepped back from the screen. "I walked away." "People do not just walk away from something like this," Adrian said. "There is usually a reason." There was. He felt the cold of the room more sharply suddenly. The hum of the servers deepened. For a second, the flickering lights blurred at the edge of his vision. "A car ran a red light," he said quietly. "T-boned us at an intersection near Queen Anne. Drunk driver. You can look that up too if you want." Adrian was silent. "Maya died before the ambulance made it to Harborview," Ethan went on. "Lily was 2. I had left a deployment meeting early to pick them up. Traffic was bad. I was 10 minutes off schedule. I spent months calculating what those 10 minutes meant." He stared at his hands as if they belonged to someone else now. "Every time I sat in a secure room after that watching defense simulations, talking about acceptable risk, all I could see was her. In the car? In the hospital? Hooked to a machine. His voice thinned. He forced it back to level. I could not go back into that world and care about anything the way I was supposed to, he said. So, I did everyone a favor and left. You took a job fixing broken air conditioners, Adrian said. I took jobs that let me pick my kid up from daycare and sleep at least a little at night, Ethan answered. He met Adrian's eyes, then a tired defiance there. You got all of that from a background check, did you? He asked. I got the incident report, Adrian said. The obituary, the reassignment notice, the resignation letter, the rest I guessed. He nodded at the screen again. But whether you like it or not, this is still you, the person who sees patterns no one else notices, the one who looks at that map and spots the orange halo in a sea of white. Ethan looked back at Sentinel Grid. The orange glow around the compromised node seemed brighter now, as if it knew it had been seen. You brought me down here to show me someone is nibbling at your golden goose, he said. You want me to help you find them. I brought you down here because you are the only person I have seen in a long time who will walk into a room full of power and say, "This is on me," when it is not, Adrian said, and because whoever is inside our walls has a head start. He let that hang for a second. Someone is moving under our feet, Adrian added, and I need someone who knows what it feels like when the ground drops away. Ethan kept his eyes on the glowing map. You already have a security team, he said. Analysts, architects, people who know this system as well as I do. If they did, Adrian replied, we would not be here. He crossed to a narrow console beneath the screen and woke it with a touch. The Sentinel Grid view slid to one side, shrinking, and another window appeared. This one was less pretty. Folder icons, file names, strings of numbers. Adrian opened a document. Rows of transactions filled the screen, dates and amounts marching down. Most of them were ordinary on the surface. Consulting fees, retainers, shell companies with vague names. You follow the numbers long enough, Adrian said. They tell you a story. He tapped a line near the center. These start 6 months ago. Moderate amounts all routed through small firms overseas, harmless on their own. He clicked another file. Screenshots of encrypted chats appeared. Each block of text carried a date and a time. These start about the same time, he said. Different channels, same pattern, questions, probing, offers. The username on one side of the conversation was obscured. The other side was not. Handtech defense. Ethan stared at the messages. Phrases stood out. Test access. Non-public modules. Non-traceable compensation. They tried to buy Sentinel Grid last year, Ethan said. They made the news. They tried 4 times, Adrian answered. I said no every time, so they looked for someone inside who would give them what they wanted piece by piece. He opened another image. This time a face looked back at them. Square jaw, careful haircut, the kind of smile that belonged on annual reports and trade magazines. Martin Kane, Ethan said. He recognized the name. Vice President for Strategic Development. He had seen him in the elevator with visiting dignitaries, always in a tailored suit, always in motion. You have met him, Adrian asked. In the hallway, Ethan replied. Once he dropped his phone, I picked it up. He did not say thank you. Adrian almost smiled. The expression did not quite reach his eyes. Martin likes deals, he said. He likes attention. He likes being the one who makes things happen. He swiped through more images. Grainy photos from what looked like a restaurant. Martin shaking hands with a man Ethan did not know. A thick folder on the table between them. Martin stepping into a car outside a hotel. Martin entering a private terminal at the airport. Some of this I got through official channels, Adrian said. Some I did not. It all points the same direction. Back to the transaction list. The amounts increased slowly. 200,000, 400, up past 1 million. That is a lot of appreciation for consulting, Ethan said. It stops being consulting when they ask for source code, Adrian replied. The orange node you saw is Martin's side project. He clicked again. A camera feed opened in a smaller window. It showed a hallway Ethan knew one of the executive corridors, but from an angle he had never seen before. Martin walked into frame, swiped his badge at a door, and disappeared inside. Another angle. Later, perhaps another day. Martin again, this time with a slim black case that could hold a laptop. He looked around before entering the room. Server access room, Ethan said. Not the one on the map, Adrian answered. A private one. Only a handful of people are supposed to use it. Supposed to, Ethan repeated. He watched Martin on the grainy footage. The timestamps matched some of the small data pulls from Sentinel Grid. A pattern asserted itself in his mind the way it used to in secure labs at 3 in the morning. "You could have gone to the board," Ethan said. "To the authorities. To whoever oversees your contracts." "With what?" Adrian asked. "Screenshots and bad vibes. A man shaking hands with another man in a restaurant. Money in offshore accounts that on paper come from consulting." He shook his head. "Martin is careful," he said. "He has not taken enough in one bite yet. Not enough to make a complete copy. He thinks I will not notice the crumbs." Adrian turned away from the screen and faced Ethan. "I needed proof," he said. "I needed him to make a bigger move. For that he had to feel safe. He had to believe he had someone to blame when it went wrong." "Me," Ethan said. "You have been in the building long enough to know too much," Adrian replied. "But you are low visibility. Unimportant in their eyes. A man in coveralls who shows up in camera frames and does not get noticed." Ethan thought of himself reflected in the glass of the conference room, a shadow at the edge of everyone else's important day. "They wanted your name on their story," Adrian said. "They wanted to be able to say the maintenance guy did it. The one we fired. He held a grudge. He had just enough access to cause trouble." "They almost got it," Ethan said. "Almost is not enough," Adrian replied. He set the remote down. "I pushed you in that room," he continued. "I wanted to see what you did when it was not fair. When the worst eyes in the building were on you." "You wanted to see if I would beg," Ethan said. "I wanted to see if you would lie," Adrian answered. He let that settle, then nodded toward Sentinel Grid again. "I know Martin is involved," he said. "I know he has help. I know he is not done. What I do not have yet is the moment where he cannot talk his way out." Ethan looked at the orange halo around the node. It reacted, pulsing gently, as if something behind it shifted. "What do you want from me?" he asked. Before Adrian could answer, the lights in the room flickered. The hum of the servers deepened, then surged. On the Sentinel Grid map, the orange halo brightened. Another node beside it flared to life, then another. A thin line linked them, turning from white to amber. A siren chirped inside the room. Not the blaring kind from the upper floors, just a sharp, insistent tone that made the hair on Ethan's arms rise. On the edge of the screen, words appeared in the corner. "Unauthorized access detected." Adrian's hand went to the console without hurry, but there was a tension in his shoulders now. "How often does that happen?" Ethan asked. "Not like this," Adrian said. He stepped aside. Ethan found his feet already moving toward the keyboard. The interface here was not one he had used before, but the logic underneath was familiar. Layers of defense, visualizations of traffic, color-coded alerts. He shifted the view from topological to transactional. The nodes flattened into a list, each with an ID source tag and a stream description. One of them glowed amber. Above it, packets rolled across in a steady trickle. "Same node as the crumbs," Ethan said. "Different pattern." On another pane, he pulled up the connection path. The origin point sat inside the corporate network, but the routing took a crooked path through proxy services and a cloud provider Ethan knew was used by Handtech. "Someone is accelerating," he said. "Can you stop it?" Adrian asked. Ethan's hands hovered over the keys. He could feel his heart pounding, not with the panic of the conference room, but with the sharp, narrow focus he had not felt since he had walked away from the kind of work that had nearly broken him. He opened a terminal window. The system gave him read access only. He needed more. "You brought me down here, you can give me elevation," he said. Adrian reached over and typed something into a separate console. An icon in the corner of Ethan's screen changed from gray to green. "Root on this segment," Adrian said. "For now." Ethan exhaled. He traced the session ID. Whoever had opened the unauthorized channel had masked their identity inside the company, piggybacking on a service account for a storage backup. It was clever, and it would fool any automated rule set trained to treat that account as trusted. He was not an automated rule set. He flagged the session in memory, then built a small barrier of his own, a kind of net on the path that would catch whatever came through and duplicate it before it reached its target. Packets hit the barrier. They paused there, copied, then passed on. To the attacker, it would look like a minor delay in network latency. Data scrolled in a side window. Function headers, table layouts, pieces of structure. "They are not taking code this time," Ethan said. "They are taking the blueprint. They want to know how the system thinks." "Can you feed them something else?" Adrian asked. "Too late for this slice," Ethan said, "but I can mark the path." He set a tracer in the outgoing stream, a foreign marker subtle enough to survive routing, but distinct if you knew what to look for. The siren chirped again. Another node flickered. The line between them turned red for a heartbeat. Ethan narrowed his eyes. "They are branching," he said, "trying to move laterally." He cut the privilege of the storage account they were riding on, reducing it step by step so that any automated watchdog would not panic at a sudden drop. The session sputtered, then stalled. A line of text appeared above the map. Connection lost. The amber halo faded back to orange. The hum of the room softened again. Ethan's fingers rested on the keys. He could feel the residue of adrenaline in his muscles. His mouth tasted like copper. He leaned back a fraction. On another screen, a timer stopped. It showed the elapsed time since the first unauthorized flag. 23 seconds. Adrian watched him. Last time we had an internal breach. Adrian said, our top security consultant took 4 minutes to lock it out. They missed half of the packet stream. They never saw the lateral branch. Ethan flexed his fingers once, feeling the stiffness. Maybe they did not have enough coffee, he said. Adrian did not smile. They did not have the right instincts, he said. He walked around the console and stood across from Ethan the Sentinel grid display, bathing both of them in cold light. You still see the whole board? Adrian said quietly. You have been hiding in ducts and boiler rooms, but your head did not stay there. He gestured toward the frozen timer. That is the person I came looking for, he said. Ethan looked at the screen at the flickering nodes that represented systems far beyond this room. Systems that people trusted to stay safe. His chest rose and fell. It is one incident, he said. Whoever is on the other end will come back. Good, Adrian said. We want them to. Martin will not stop until he gets what he promised, and Hantech will not stop until they own what I built. He picked up the black card from the console and turned it between his fingers. I can hire a dozen bright engineers, he said. I can buy tools, audits, external certifications. What I cannot buy is a man who will take a hit that does not belong to him, then walk into a fire when he has already been burned. He held the card out toward Ethan. I do not need a victim, he said. I need a partner who cannot be bought, who knows what it means to lose everything and still get back up. I need you to help me catch Martin Kane from the inside. Ethan did not reach for the card yet. He thought of Lily's drawing in his bag the way she had written Super Fixer in green crayon. He thought of the stack of envelopes at home. He thought of Maya, of a hospital room, and numbers on a monitor that no longer changed. He thought of Martin smiling in grainy photos, shaking hands over quiet deals. You are asking me to walk back into a world I walked out of on purpose, Ethan said. I am asking you to use what you are good at to stop a man who is selling pieces of this company to the highest bidder, Adrian replied, and to keep your name from ending up in a story you did not write. The black card sat between them, small and heavy at the same time. Ethan lifted his hand and closed his fingers around it. The card was warm where it pressed into his palm. Ethan turned it once between his fingers. It did not look like much. Matte black, no logo, just a chip and a faint engraving along the bottom that caught the light at a certain angle. 47. He closed his hand around it. You are sure it is Martin, he said. I am sure enough that I am willing to risk showing you this room, Adrian answered. I am sure enough to know that if he is not stopped from inside, someone like you will end up in handcuffs for something you did not do. Feels like I am already halfway there, Ethan said. Not yet, Adrian replied. Right now you are just unemployed. He said it without cruelty. It was simply a fact placed on the table between them, along with all the others. Ethan slipped the card into his pocket next to his old phone. Its edge dug into the fabric. And if I say no, he asked, what happens? Adrian looked back at the Sentinel grid map at the orange halo that still glowed faintly. Martin has been preparing a story for months, he said. You are a convenient main character. He has logs lined up, access patterns. He has already used your name on requests he should not have made. You heard the way Miles talked. Word travels down. He is shaping what people expect to believe. He faced Ethan again. If you walk away now, I cannot stop him from deploying that story when it suits him, Adrian said. I may be able to fight it. You will not have the same resources. So, I help you and maybe I clear my name, Ethan said. Or, I walk and I watch it get dragged through the mud anyway. It is not about maybe, Adrian said. If this continues, it will erupt. The question is whether you are standing in the blast radius holding a match, or whether you are the one who can show where the fuse really is. The room hummed. The server fans pushed cold air across the back of Ethan's neck. The sensation made him think of hospital air filtered and too clean. Lily is 6, he said. Adrian's eyes shifted a quick flicker of understanding. I know, he said. I read that part too. I also know that if someone like Hantech decides you are an obstacle later, they will not care how old she is. Ethan's jaw tightened. You are not scaring me, he said. I am telling you the part everyone else would make sound nicer, Adrian replied. You already live in the part of the world where things are not nice. Ethan exhaled through his nose. The taste of copper was gone now, replaced by the dryness that came after a long adrenaline spike. You want an answer now, he said. I would like one, Adrian said. I am not going to pretend you owe me anything. Think about it. Sleep. See your kid. You have until tomorrow. Tomorrow when? Before dark. Adrian picked up a folder from a nearby table and tucked it under his arm. If you decide to stay out of this, he added, do yourself a favor and stay far out. New city, new job, new life. Martin is not the kind of man who forgets an almost convenient scapegoat. He walked toward the elevator. Ethan stood where he was, hands in his pockets, listening to the changing pitch of the machines. The Sentinel grid map shrank as the screen cycled to other views. The orange halo dimmed. He glanced at his watch. The numbers meant very little in the windowless room, but the weight in his pocket reminded him that somewhere above rain still hit the glass and buses still ran on schedules. He followed Adrian to the elevator. The ride down felt shorter. When the doors opened into the concrete hallway and then out into the garage level, the air seemed heavier than before. At the SUV, Ian paused. You can keep that, he said, nodding toward Ethan's pocket. You sure that is wise? Ethan asked. If you lose it, we have another problem, Adrian replied. Just do not show it to anyone at the front desk. He unlocked the SUV and got in, leaving the passenger door open. You are not giving me a ride home, Ethan said. No, Adrian said. I am going back upstairs. He started the engine. The sound bounced off the walls. Ethan, he added, looking at him through the open window. Whichever direction you choose, do it because you decided not because someone like Martin pushed you into it. Ethan stepped back as the SUV pulled away. The taillights glowed red, then vanished around the concrete curve. Silence settled in its place. A drip somewhere in the garage tapped a slow rhythm. He walked to his sedan and slid into the driver's seat. The interior smelled faintly of old upholstery and the takeout bag he had forgotten to throw away on Tuesday. He hung Lily's coat carefully on the hook above the back seat where she would spot it immediately when she climbed in. His phone screen lit when he picked it up. A new message from Mrs. Calloway. She fell asleep watching cartoons. Breathing is good. I left her drawing on your table. Looked like she wanted you to see it. He typed a quick thank you and set the phone face down on the passenger seat. The drive home was a blur of wet roads and red lights. Headlights smeared across the windshield. The wipers scraped back and forth. The radio stayed off. Every time he stopped at an intersection, his eyes flicked instinctively to the cross traffic, the way they had since the accident. Tonight, the street seemed almost empty, as if the city had pulled back to give him a clear path. He parked outside his building, the familiar sag of the curb, under the weight of his car, greeting him like an old, unwanted friend. The foyer smelled of damp carpet, and someone's cooking onions and something fried. On the third floor, Mrs. Calloway's door was cracked open. Light spilled into the hallway. Her cat watched him go past with yellow eyes. She appeared in the doorway. You are back late, she said. Long day, he answered. She did fine, the older woman said. Coughed a bit after dinner, but the mask helped. She is out cold now. Left you this. She held out a folded piece of paper. Green crayon peeked from the edges. Ethan took it. The lines were familiar. The big glass building, the figure in front of it with the tool bag and the hard hat, the words at the bottom shaky but bold. Super fixer. She kept asking if you fixed the big building, Mrs. Calloway said. I told her you always do. Ethan swallowed. Thank you for watching her, he said. You look like you need a real meal, she said. I have stew on the stove. I am okay, he lied. Just tired. She studied his face for a second, then nodded slowly. Door is open if you change your mind. He let himself into his apartment. The air inside was warmer than the hallway, scented with the remains of breakfast, and the faint plasticky smell of the nebulizer hoses. The light over the sink still buzzed. Lily sprawled sideways on the couch, hair a dark halo on the pillow, one arm flung out, small fingers curled. Her inhaler sat on the coffee table next to an empty bowl with a ring of soup at the bottom. He set the drawing on the counter and knelt beside the couch. Hey, he whispered. Her eyes fluttered open. She blinked, then smiled in that loose, sleepy way she had. You are home, she said. Yeah, he said. I am home. She pushed herself up a little, rubbing her eyes, then noticed the coat in his hand. You did not forget, she said. Never, he replied. He draped it over the back of the chair where it usually hung. The yellow brightened the kitchen corner. Did you fix the big building? She asked. He hesitated. 1,000 technical answers rose up. A dozen half-truths, none of them fit in her world. I tried, he said. Some things broke that were not mine to fix. Her brows knit. She considered that for a second. Are you in trouble? She asked. He sat on the edge of the coffee table. Yes, he said. A little. With the boss man in the glass room? She asked. She had seen a photo of the tower in a newspaper once pointed at it, and he had told her that was where his boss worked. Something like that, he said. She studied his face the way she studied cartoons when she did not get a joke. Are you still my superhero? She asked. The question landed softer than what Adrian had said and harder at the same time. I do not know about superhero, he answered, but I am still your dad. That is better, she said. She leaned in, pressed her forehead against his chest for a moment, then yawned. I am sleepy, she murmured. Then sleep, he said. He stayed there until her breathing evened out again. Only then did he ease her back onto the pillow and pull a worn blanket over her legs. In the kitchen, he filled the kettle, set it on the stove, and watched the water heat without really seeing it. The black card in his pocket felt heavier than metal. He took it out and set it on the table next to her drawing. The old university diploma hung crooked on the wall. Beside it, the frame with the government badge lay face down where he had left it months ago, too tired to straighten it one more time. He walked over, lifted the frame, and wiped a thumb across the dust on the glass. His own face looked back at him from under the plastic younger standing in front of a generic blue background. He set the frame upright again and went back to the table. Steam began to curl from the kettle spout. He poured hot water over instant coffee and watched the dark swirl rise. The smell was bitter. He sat elbows on the table and pulled the Sentinel grid images from earlier into his head, as if they were still on the screen. The orange halo, the steady bleed of data, the timer, handcuffs, courts. Lily sitting on a bench in a room too big for her watching strangers talk about her father as if he were not there. He closed his eyes and exhaled. On the table, the black card caught a bit of light from the stove. He picked up his phone instead. His thumb hovered over Adrian's number, recently added, still strange beneath his touch. For a second, he considered deleting it. He tapped call. The ring sounded too loud in the small kitchen. On the fourth ring, someone picked up. Cole, Adrian's voice said. It is Ethan, he replied. There was the faintest pause. I assumed you had thrown the card in the trash by now, Adrian said. I did not, Ethan said. He looked at Lily on the couch, at the yellow coat on the chair, at the drawing on the table. I am in, he said. The line was quiet for a heartbeat. 7 in the morning, Adrian said. Same door in the garage. Bring whatever you need to work. And eat something stronger than coffee before you come. He hung up without goodbye. Ethan set the phone down. He stared at the card again, then picked it up and slipped it into his wallet behind his last debit card and in front of a photo of Lily that was already starting to fade. The rest of the night came in pieces. He washed the dishes. He straightened the diploma frame again when it tilted. He turned off the kitchen light and stood for a moment in the doorway listening to the train rattle past outside. Sleep was shallow when it finally came. His dreams were a collage of blinking lights, rain on glass, and Lily's small hand gripping his. The alarm dragged him out of it too soon. Gray light filtered through the thin curtains. The building hummed with the low sounds of morning. Lily snored softly on the couch, still wrapped in the blanket. He dressed quietly, clean shirt, the least worn of his work pants. He moved around the apartment in a practiced rhythm, making tea instead of coffee, packing a sandwich and an apple into a paper bag. He paused by the chair, touched the hood of the yellow coat. On the way out, he left a note for Lily on the counter beside her drawing. Be back for dinner. Be good for Mrs. C. Love you. He locked the door and walked down the hallway. The stairwell smelled of dust and old paint. Outside, the sky over Seattle was the pale color it wore before the rain decided what shape the day would take. By the time he reached Halcyon Tower again, commuters clustered under umbrellas near the entrance, balancing coffee cups and phones. He avoided the main doors and cut along the side of the building, to the ramp that led down into the underground garage. At the bottom, the concrete air wrapped around him like yesterday. The metal door sat in its recess, blank and unmarked. He took the black card from his wallet, pressed it to the panel, and waited for the light to change. The light on the panel shifted from red to green. A soft click sounded inside the door. Ethan pushed and stepped through into the short, bare hallway. The air felt cooler here, cleaner, as if it had been filtered more times than the air upstairs. At the end of the hall, the elevator waited, doors closed, metal face blank. He crossed to it, pressed the single button, and listened to the quiet mechanics behind the wall as the car descended. When the doors opened, Adrian was already inside. He leaned against the rail, a paper cup in one hand. He wore the same style of white shirt and dark slacks as yesterday, but this one was dry. The tie was knotted properly this time. You are on time, Adrian said. You told me before dark, Ethan replied as he stepped in. This felt like a safe bet. Adrian passed him the cup without asking. Drink. The coffee here is terrible, but it is hot. Ethan took a cautious sip. It was too strong and too bitter, but it pushed some of the fog from his head. Adrian touched his black card to the reader. The strip of light glowed, and the elevator began to rise. Any change since last night? Ethan asked. Our tracer worked, Adrian said. We saw the path they used. The signal bounced through 3 proxy services, then landed in a data center registered to a subsidiary of Handtech. He said it with the calm of someone whose suspicions had been confirmed in a way that did not surprise him. So it is not just paranoia, Ethan said. If I was going to be paranoid, Adrian replied, I would have built a bunker instead of a tower. The elevator stopped. The doors slid open onto the Sentinel grid floor. It looked the same as yesterday. Glass walls, rows of servers blinking. The giant screen on the far wall currently dark. The hum of machines like a steady breath in the background. Only one thing was different. At the center of the main room, a 3-dimensional model hovered above a low table. Lines of light traced floor's duct's shafts. The outline of Halcyon Tower floated there in miniature, its shape familiar, even in schematic. Ethan walked toward it, drawn by the slowly rotating image. The tower had been sliced open in the model. Inside, at about a third of the height from the ground, a small cube glowed in a deeper white. Thin tunnels and corridors led to it. Server vault, Adrian said. The heart of Sentinel grid. You have seen the ordinary server rooms on the corporate floors. This is where the core runs. He tapped a point on the model, and the cube enlarged. Inside it, narrow aisles appeared flanked by tall racks. A separate chamber at the rear showed as a smaller, darker block. Primary extraction point. Abstraction point, Ethan said. You see why I brought you in, Adrian replied. He tapped another point. A very thin line revealed itself behind the vault hidden in the wall. Maintenance tunnel, Ethan said. Emergency access, cooling power cable runs. He followed it with his eyes. One entrance at the far end near the freight elevators. The other opens right behind the core access panel. Correct, Adrian said. On paper, only 6 people know the second entrance exists. In reality, more hands than that have touched it over the years, but only a few have both the knowledge and the clearance to use it for what Martin wants. He pointed at the model again. A small red dot blinked near the inner wall of the vault. This is the port he needs, Adrian said. The only place he can plug in and pull the encryption core without tripping every alarm we have. And it is behind the panel that opens from the tunnel, Ethan said, seeing the way the systems aligned. So he can get to it without showing up on the main hallway cameras. Exactly, Adrian said. Ethan leaned over the table, tracing paths in his mind. He saw heat maps, access logs, imagined camera angles. He saw Martin walking through that narrow tunnel with a sleek black device in his hand. When does he move? Ethan asked. Adrian checked his watch. Board meeting is at 8 tonight, he said. Martin scheduled it himself. Subject line reads, Security Incident Review and Mitigation Proposal. Mitigation, Ethan repeated. That would be me. We pulled the draft of his presentation from his assistant's cache, Adrian said. You feature heavily. There are log snippets selectively edited. Diagrams showing how a disgruntled employee with a technical background could have compromised the system. You are very thorough when you want to ruin a person, Ethan said. It is useful to know exactly where someone plans to stab you, Adrian replied. Makes it easier to move out of the way. He nodded toward the model again. During that meeting, while the room is full of people and every eye is on the slide deck, Martin will need to make one final larger extraction to justify the money Handtech has already sent him. They will want proof of product. He will tell them the chaos of discovering your sabotage makes it the perfect window. Ethan straightened. You want me in the vault when he arrives, he said. I want someone there who can recognize what he is doing and catch him in a way no one can explain away, Adrian answered. You are the only one who fits that description. He stepped to a side table and picked up a small device the size of a coin. This, he said, handing it to Ethan, is your ear, direct line to me. Ethan turned it in his fingers. It was matte gray with a thin, clear hook. He placed it over his ear. It settled there almost weightless. You will hear the board meeting, Adrian said. You will also hear me. Once you have something solid, you say so. I lock down the building. Security will be at that vault in 90 seconds. And if I have nothing, Ethan asked. Then you do not say anything, Adrian replied. You walk out the way you came in and no one ever knows you were there. Ethan thought of Martin's smile in the grainy restaurant photos. It did not fit with walking away. What about cameras in the tunnel? He asked. There are sensors, not cameras, Adrian said. Motion and heat tied into this system. I can mask your signature for a window of time. It will look like regular bass noise on the logs. You have thought about this, Ethan said. I have done little else for weeks, Adrian replied. He picked up another object from the table, a badge similar in shape to the ones everyone at Halcyon wore, but in the same matte black as the card. He held it out. This is your key for the day, he said. Full access within the zones we need. If anyone scans it, it will read as a temporary audit credential. If someone asks, Ethan said, what am I? Here to fix something, Adrian replied. It is what you are good at. Ethan clipped the badge to his shirt pocket. The weight was subtle, but he felt it when he moved. They spent the next hour walking through the plan. Adrian showed him the live floor diagrams, the locations of security teams, the different routes to and from the vault. They discussed the timing of the board meeting, the order of agenda items, the likely moment Martin would ask for the floor. At one point on another screen, Ethan saw a file Adrian pulled up but did not open. The title read, Halcyon Dynamics Internal Incident Report, Subject E. Reyes. You were really going to sign that? Ethan said. I was going to sign something Martin wrote for me, Adrian answered. Then I decided to write something else. He closed the file. When they were done, Ethan could see the evening as a series of frames in his mind. The boardroom, the vault, the tunnel, the point where one life intersected with another. Adrian checked his watch again. You should go upstairs, he said. Use the day to move like a ghost. Get a feel for the path. Wear the badge. See who notices. And you? Ethan asked. I have a full calendar, Adrian said. Apparently I am still the chief executive of a large company. He returned Ethan's coffee cup to the console, then hesitated. One more thing, he said. If at any point this feels wrong, if you see something I did not account for, you do not have to keep going. I already said yes, Ethan replied. Yes is not a chain, Adrian said. It is a door. He left the rest unspoken. Ethan took the elevator up and stepped into a different rhythm. The rest of the day slid by in a blur of corridors and stairwells, with the black badge on his shirt, doors that would have beeped at him before opened on a single touch. The freight elevators hummed to life at his command. Security guards nodded at him, eyes flicking briefly to the unfamiliar color of his card, and then away again when the scanner light flashed green. He moved through floors he had only glimpsed on directory boards. Legal with its quiet offices and thicker carpets. Research where whiteboard walls were covered in equations and sketches of devices in stages of birth. Executive support where assistants typed fast and spoke faster into headsets. In each elevator ride, he watched his reflection in the metal. Sometimes he looked like a maintenance worker lost on the wrong floor. Sometimes he looked like a man who belonged wherever he stepped. By late afternoon, the sky outside had turned a flat steel color. The rain had not started yet, but the city felt like it was holding its breath. At 6, he met Adrian in a small, windowless briefing room, 3 levels below the boardroom. On the table lay a slim laptop, darker and more solid than the aging one Ethan used at home. Adrian pushed it toward him. Preloaded with what you need to monitor the port, Adrian said. Hardened. No external access. If you lose it, I will be annoyed, but no one will learn anything they do not already know. Ethan opened it. The machine woke at a touch, showing a clean interface ready for input. You still have time to back out, Adrian said. You are very persistent with that, Ethan replied. I have seen too many people pretend they are fine until they are not, Adrian answered. I am here, Ethan said. If that changes, you will be the first to know. Adrian nodded once. He placed a hand briefly on the table, fingers splayed as if grounding himself in the moment. Board meeting starts in 1 hour, he said. We will run on schedule for the first part. Reports, forecasts, all the usual. Martin will get impatient. He will look at his watch. He will push for his slot. When he does, I will give it to him. You enjoy that, Ethan said. I enjoy watching people present a performance they think I have never seen before, Adrian replied. He handed Ethan a small folded map printed on ordinary paper. Ethan unfolded it. It showed only the basement levels and the paths to the vault and the tunnel. In case the systems fail, Adrian said. That is comforting, Ethan answered. We live in a world where things break, Adrian said. You should know that better than anyone. They left the room together, then split at the elevators. Adrian went up. Ethan went down. The air grew colder as he descended. At the level above the vault, the elevator doors opened onto a quieter space. The walls were painted a pale gray. The floor was sealed concrete. Emergency lights glowed at intervals along the ceiling. He followed the map and the signs until he reached a thick door with a small sign that simply read, "Server Access." A card reader sat beside it. He touched his black badge to the reader. The light turned green. The lock released. Inside the server vault was cooler still. The air had a faint metallic tang touched with ozone. Rows of tall racks stretched out the lights in them, blinking in patterns that made the shadows dance on the walls. The sound was a constant rush in his ears, the combined exhale of all the machines working at once. It reminded him of standing near a waterfall, the white noise swallowing smaller sounds. He walked down the main aisle, counting the racks, silently feeling the pulse of the place. At the far end, behind a panel that looked identical to all the others, to anyone who did not know better, a narrow maintenance door sat flush with the wall. He checked the lock. It was engaged from his side. That was good. He circled back to a small, discreet panel set low on one rack near the center of the room. This was the port Adrian had marked on the model. To anyone else, it would look like just another service access. To Martin, it would be a doorway. Ethan set the laptop on a metal cart nearby, plugged in a short cable, and connected it to the port. The screen lit with system information streams of data scrolling across. He ran a quick test command. The system responded with a reassuringly bland string of characters. He adjusted the earpiece. A faint buzz told him it was live. "Testing," he said softly. "Reading you," Adrian's voice replied, tinny but clear. "You are in." "Vault is secure," Ethan said. "No sign of movement yet." "Board is assembling," Adrian said. There were other voices faint in the background on his end, papers rustling, chairs moving. "They are arguing about the order of presentations, which means everything is normal." Ethan allowed himself a small breath. He pulled a simple folding stool from where it leaned against a rack and sat the laptop in front of him on the cart. His eyes scanned the screen, watching for any deviation in the baseline noise of the network. Time became elastic. He listened as the voices in his ears shifted from casual to formal. Adrian called the meeting to order. People introduced themselves for the record. A finance director launched into an update on quarterly performance. Numbers filled the air, half remembered and half new. Down in the vault, the only light was the glow of the electronics and the pale wash from overhead fixtures. His world was narrowed to the screen, the hum, and the occasional murmur of the meeting above. He checked his watch. 7:30. Through the earpiece, the topic changed. Product roadmaps, risk assessments. Someone asked a question about regulatory pressure, another about competition. At some point, he heard Adrian deflect a suggestion to move the security incident report up the agenda. "We follow the order we agreed to," Adrian said. "Numbers first, then strategy, then incidents. Process exists for a reason." There was a hint of steel under the smooth tone. Martin spoke once or twice, his voice smooth and relaxed with that practiced charm that worked well in rooms like the boardroom. Ethan listened carefully, as if the cadence alone could give away the plan. The minutes stretched. At 7:58, Ethan heard a small shift in the meeting. Chairs scraped, papers shuffled. The energy in the voices changed, took on a sharper edge. "Next item," Adrian said. "Security." Below in the vault, Ethan felt the hairs on the back of his neck rise. On his screen, a process flickered. A new handshaking sequence appeared in a corner of the interface, small and precise. Someone had begun to talk to the port. He straightened eyes, narrowing fingers hovering over the keys. The motion sensor in the back corner of the room registered a slight change. A tiny icon on his display shifted from blue to pale yellow, indicating heat and movement near the tunnel entrance. Metal scraped softly on the far wall. The hidden panel behind him released with a slow, quiet sigh. Ethan did not turn immediately. He watched the pattern of the handshake settle into a rhythm, then looked up. In the reflection on the glossy side of a server case, he saw the maintenance door at the rear of the vault ease open and a shadow step through into the cold, humming light. In the reflection on the server case, the shadow resolved into a man. Martin Kane stepped fully into the vault, smoothing the front of his suit jacket, as if he had just left a cocktail party instead of a hidden tunnel. The tunnel hatch whispered shut behind him, sealing out the dim glow from the passage. He was not carrying a briefcase. Instead, in his right hand, he held a slim black device with a short cable coiled neatly around it. It looked like an external drive, only denser, the kind of tool that did not come from a consumer store. For a moment, he did not see Ethan. His eyes swept the aisles, noting the racks, the panel, the neat floor. He moved with the ease of someone who had walked this path before. Ethan let him take 2 steps. Then he spoke. "Busy night for a vice president." Martin's head snapped toward the voice. Under the white vault lights, his features were sharper than in the grainy photos Adrian had shown. Fine lines around the eyes, a hint of stubble he had not bothered to shave before the board meeting. The practiced smile did not appear. Reyes, Martin said. He said the name as if it tasted bad. You are supposed to be gone. Working on it, Ethan replied. He stood slowly, leaving the laptop open, the cable still connected to the port. He kept his posture loose, neutral, as if he had stumbled into the wrong room by mistake. On the earpiece, the boardroom hummed. Someone was finishing a sentence about risk mitigation. Adrian's voice cut in unhurried. Thank you for the overview. Next, I would like to discuss internal security. Martin's shoulders twitched almost imperceptibly at the word internal. His gaze flicked to Ethan's chest, to the black badge clipped there, then to the laptop. You should not be here, Martin said. His voice stayed low, but the timbre hardened. You do not have clearance for this level anymore. Badge says otherwise, Ethan said. He stepped away from the aisle, angling himself so that both the panel and the tunnel door were in his peripheral vision. The air felt colder against the back of his neck. Through the earpiece, someone in the boardroom cleared their throat. Martin, Adrian said, as head of strategic development, you had prepared some thoughts on our recent security incident. There was a small pause, just long enough for Ethan to understand that Martin was not in his seat upstairs. In due time, another voice covered the chair of the board perhaps. Let us finish the current section. Down in the vault, Martin moved closer. You think Cole brought you down here to help him? Martin said. You think you are the hero of this story. I think I am in the wrong place at the wrong time, Ethan said. Again, Martin's eyes narrowed. You do not understand how this works, Martin said. People like you fix leaks. People like me build ships. When the ship springs a hole, the board does not blame the wrench. They blame the architect unless he can point to someone who was careless with the pipes. That is a lot of metaphors for a simple plan, Ethan said. He kept his tone even, buying seconds. On the laptop, a new process spawned. The system had recognized the black device in Martin's hand, an unauthorized interface trying to initiate a handshake with the core. Walk back into the tunnel, Mr. Kane, Ethan said. You forget something in the boardroom. Martin smiled then. It was not friendly. You are an interesting problem, he said. Cole thinks he can use you once and throw you away. Handtech thinks you are a convenient cover. You could have stayed invisible. Instead, you walked into my story. His left hand slid into his jacket, fingers searching for something inside. Ethan saw the movement and did not wait to see what came out. He lunged. The distance between them was small, but in the tight space of the aisle it felt longer. His boot skidded slightly on the sealed floor. His shoulder hit Martin square in the chest and drove him back into the nearest rack. Metal rattled. The servers hummed on. The black device flew from Martin's hand, flipping end over end. Ethan saw it fall in the corner of his vision, a dark blur against the gray floor. Martin was stronger than he looked. He twisted, trying to bring his right arm around, fingers still reaching for his inner jacket. Ethan grabbed his wrist with both hands, pinning it against the rack. Easy, Ethan said through gritted teeth. You do not want to drop anything else in here. Martin drove his knee up, catching Ethan in the thigh. Pain shot up his leg. Ethan grunted but held on. On the earpiece, distant and muffled by the pounding in his ears, the meeting continued. A director spoke about regulatory concerns, another about public perception. Martin, Adrian's voice came again. Your perspective on these issues will be valuable when we reach that agenda item. Martin's eyes flashed. You hear that, he said. He is waiting for me. He can wait a little longer, Ethan replied. Martin shoved off the rack with his shoulder, trying to spin them, so Ethan's back would hit the opposite row. Ethan shifted his weight, using the momentum to angle them sideways, instead away from the nearest rack. His boots scraped on the floor rubber, squealing. They slammed into the end of the aisle. Ethan's shoulder hit the wall. Something popped in his left arm, then settled with a dull ache. Martin tore his left hand free and raked it toward Ethan's face. Ethan jerked back in time to avoid fingernails in his eyes, but the edge of a ring caught his cheekbone, drawing a hot line of pain. Blood warmed his skin. He tightened his grip on Martin's right wrist. Under his fingers, he felt the outline of something hard inside the jacket. Not a gun. Smaller. Maybe a second device. Let go, Martin hissed. You have no idea who you are standing in front of. I have a pretty good idea, Ethan said. Your account has been nibbling at Sentinel Grid like a rat for 3 weeks. You think that is me? Martin said. That is adorable. He pushed against Ethan, trying to twist away. Tech does not care who I am, Martin said. They care what I bring them. When I deliver the core, I am out. New continent, new name. You think they will leave any loose ends here? You think their friends in certain corners of the world care about some maintenance man with a sick kid? The words hit harder than the knee had. Ethan's fingers tightened involuntarily. "You leave her out of this," he said. Martin laughed, breath hot. "Ballard Elementary," he said. "Little girl with dark hair and a yellow raincoat. Walks with an older woman most mornings. I do my homework too, Reyes." A cold pressure tightened around Ethan's ribs. "You are bluffing," he said. Martin leaned in close enough that Ethan could smell his cologne over the metallic tang of the vault. "Men like me do not bluff," Martin said. "We outsource." An image of Lily in her bright coat waiting at a crosswalk flashed behind Ethan's eyes. The city around her too big. Cars too fast. His grip on Martin shifted. "Then I guess I have more than one thing to fix," he said. He drove his shoulder forward, slamming Martin back into the rack again. This time he used the rebound to drop his weight, twisting Martin's arm down and away. The move wrenched something in his own back, but it broke Martin's balance. They stumbled. Martin's foot slipped. He fell to one knee. Ethan went with him, using his weight to pin Martin's arm to the floor. With his free hand, he fumbled for the dropped device. His fingers closed around the black rectangle. On the laptop, the unauthorized handshake that had started a few seconds ago flickered, then held. The system recognized a new connection, expecting it to be Martin's. Ethan slammed the device into an open port on the side of the cart and snapped the cable into the laptop instead. The system hesitated, then began to stream. Code scrolled across the screen. Not outbound this time, but a copy of what the device expected to take. The encryption core's metadata. The map of how Sentinel Grid locked and unlocked its own secrets. "Adrian," Ethan said, breathing hard. "You getting this? Seeing the stream?" Adrian's voice came through suddenly sharper. Background noise in the boardroom quieted as if someone had pressed a mute button. "Is he there with you?" Ethan looked down at Martin, still twisting under his knee, face flushed with effort and anger. "Yes," Ethan said. "He is very hands-on." Martin snarled and bucked, trying to throw him off. Ethan shifted his weight, driving a forearm across Martin's chest, pinning him to the floor. "Security in vault now," Adrian said, voice no longer smooth. "Lockdown protocol, route vault feed to boardroom main screen." A faint chime sounded in the vault. The overhead lights brightened. On the far wall, a small, darkened lens above the door clicked and irised open. The camera watched them. In the earpiece, the rustle of the meeting turned to a collective intake of breath. "What is this?" a board member demanded. "Evidence," Adrian said. "Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce the real security incident." Martin heard it. His eyes widened, darting to the camera. "You set me up," he spat. "You set yourself up," Ethan said. He grabbed Martin's free wrist and pulled it into view, lifting his hand so the camera could see the ring that had cut Ethan's cheek. The ring's face was engraved with the Handtech logo, subtle, expensive. "Smile," Ethan said. "You are on record." Martin twisted his wrist, but not fast enough. The camera had already seen. Doors somewhere in the building thudded shut in sequence, a muffled percussion that pressed through the floor. The vault door behind Ethan hissed as heavy bolts slid into place. Red strips above the exits lit, bathing the edges of the room in a warning glow. "Security teams converging," Adrian's voice said in Ethan's ear. 60 seconds. "Make it 30, Ethan muttered. Martin's breathing had turned ragged. Sweat shone at his temples. "You think this will stick?" he said. "You have no idea how many friends I have." "You are welcome to call them," Ethan replied, "after they take your phone out of an evidence bag." Martin lunged again, trying to twist his head and sink his teeth into Ethan's arm. Ethan jerked back just in time. His elbow caught Martin's jaw with a sharp crack. Martin cursed. The laptop beeped. The data stream slowed, then stopped. On the screen, the capture file saved a neat label, attaching itself with a time stamp. "Core extract attempt intercepted," Adrian said. "Got it." Boots pounded in the corridor outside. The lock on the vault door clanked. The door swung inward. Two security officers in dark uniforms entered, first weapons holstered but hands ready. Behind them, a third, then a fourth. Their faces held the same focused calm Ethan had seen in old colleagues who had trained for emergencies they hoped would never come. They took in the scene in a glance. Ethan on one knee, holding Martin down. The device in the laptop. The open panel. "Mr. Reyes," the lead officer said. "You can let go now." Ethan eased off, keeping his hands visible. As soon as his weight shifted, Martin tried to surge up, but 3 pairs of hands were on him, flipping him onto his stomach, pulling his arms behind his back. Handcuffs snapped shut with a bright final click. Martin twisted his head, looking up at Ethan from the floor, as if seeing him for the first time. "You had a chance to disappear," he said. "You could have stayed nobody." Ethan pressed his fingers against the cut on his cheek, feeling the sting. "I tried that," he said. "Did not take." One of the officers lifted Martin to his feet. They turned him toward the door. At the threshold, he looked up again at the camera, at the little lens staring down. "You are making a mistake," he said loudly for the unseen audience upstairs. "I will own this building when this is over." Adrian's voice came cool and clear through the earpiece. "You already tried," he said. "We are not accepting your offer." The officers marched Martin out into the hallway. The vault felt larger without him, the noise of the servers somehow less oppressive. Ethan stayed where he was for a second, breathing. The laptop screen showed a neat array of files, access logs, the captured core breadcrumb, device signature, all time-stamped, all tagged with Martin's credentials. "Well done," Adrian said quietly. Ethan let out a breath he had not realized he was holding. "You might want to get someone down here to check the racks," he said. "We slammed into a few." "I will send a team," Adrian said. "Right now, every executive on the 27th floor is staring at your face." "That is unfortunate," Ethan said. "You will manage," Adrian replied. Ethan wiped his cheek with the back of his hand. The blood had begun to dry, leaving a dark smear. He looked around the vault one more time. The blinking lights, the humming air, the small panel where all of this had almost slipped away. He picked up the black device from the cart and slid it into an evidence bag one of the officers had left on the floor. The plastic crinkled. "Bring that upstairs with you," Adrian said. "Take your time. Walk, do not run. You are not a fugitive anymore." The line in Ethan's ear stayed open, carrying the faint murmur of a room full of powerful people, trying to recalibrate their understanding of the man they had watched being fired that morning. He closed the laptop, tucked it under his arm, and started down the aisle toward the door. The rest of the night came in hard edges and soft focus. After Ethan left the vault, 2 members of security escorted him through the basement corridors. No one spoke. The air smelled like chilled metal and recycled air. At one point, as they passed a junction, another team moved by in the opposite direction with Martin between them. His suit was crooked. His hands were cuffed behind his back. A dark bruise was already blooming along his jaw where Ethan's elbow had connected. For the first time, Martin did not look like a man controlling the room. He looked smaller, thinner. He caught Ethan's eye as they crossed. "This will not stick," Martin said. Ethan did not answer. The guards nudged Martin forward. Their footsteps faded into the hum of the building. Upstairs, they parked Ethan in a small conference room near the board floor. Someone brought him a bottle of water and a packet of tissues. No one offered a chair, so he pulled one out himself and sat. He gave a statement. The head of security asked precise questions and wrote notes in compact handwriting. Names, times, actions, devices. Ethan recited it all, the details stacking neatly in his mind now that the adrenaline was ebbing. He did not see the boardroom. He did not see the way faces around the table had shifted as footage from the vault filled the main screen. He only heard hints through the thin walls, raised voices, then long stretches of quiet, then the muffled sound of chairs scraping. By the time they let him go, it was late. The building hallways were almost empty. Turner at the lobby desk watched him walk out with wide eyes, as if he had just seen someone step out of a television screen. "You okay?" Turner asked. "Working on it," Ethan said. He slept a few hours at home, dreamless, his body worn out enough to shut down everything else. Morning came with gray light and the sound of rain finally following through on yesterday's promise. Lily clambered into his bed at dawn, hair wild, blanket trailing. "You are squishing my toes," he said. "You were not here when I went to sleep," she answered, as if that explained everything. She pressed her face into his shoulder for a second, then pulled back and poked the bandage on his cheek. "What happened to your face?" she asked. "Walked into something," he said. "You should tell it sorry," she replied. He laughed softly, then kissed the top of her head. "Eat breakfast," he said. "I have to go to the building again." "To fix something?" she asked. "To finish something," he said. He left her with Mrs. Calloway and took the bus into downtown. The streets glistened with fresh rain. The tower rose through the low clouds, glass streaked with water. Inside the lobby was busier than usual. People clustered in small groups, whispering. Phones were out, some with social media feeds open. The air buzzed with a current Ethan could feel under his skin. Turner watched him come through the door and gave a small, grim smile. "They called in all hands," Turner said. "Everyone, mandatory." "Everyone," Ethan repeated. "In the auditorium," Turner said. "Cole is already up there." He eyed the black badge on Ethan's shirt. A flicker of recognition crossed his face, along with something like respect. "You might want to stick around," Turner added. The auditorium sat on one of the lower floors, a wide room with dimmed lights and rows of seats that rose in tiers. When Ethan slipped in through a side entrance, the space was almost full. Over 1,000 employees by the look of it, Engineers, accountants, admin, staff, security, people from floors he had never set foot on. Voices rolled over each other, low and tense. On stage, a lectern stood under the white glow of several spotlights. The Halcyon logo hung on the wall behind it. Ethan stayed in the shadows near the wings, back against the cool wall. From here, he could see the crowd without being seen by most of them. In the third row, he spotted Miles Thornton. Miles sat rigid, his tie, crooked hair a mess. His eyes were fixed on the empty stage. His right foot tapped an uneven rhythm on the floor. When someone next to him leaned in to whisper, Miles jerked his head in a quick nod but did not look away. A murmur rippled through the room as a side door opened and Adrian walked out onto the stage. No jacket this time, just a dark shirt, sleeves rolled to the elbows, a faint shadow of stubble on his jaw. The bandage on Ethan's cheek prickled in sympathy. The noise in the room faded to a ragged hush. Adrian let the quiet stretch for a moment, standing with both hands resting lightly on the lectern. His gaze moved across the crowd, taking in the faces, the leaning bodies, the phones held low in laps. "Thank you for coming on short notice," he said. His voice carried without strain. The sound system was good. The tone was measured. "Yesterday," he continued, "this company came very close to suffering the largest security breach in its history." A ripple ran through the room. People shifted, some glancing at each other, some at the doors, as if expecting something physical to follow. "A system many of you have worked on or support in some way was the target," Adrian said. "Sentinel Grid, you have heard the name." On the big screen behind him, an image of the Sentinel Grid map appeared. Nodes, lines, the glowing network Ethan had seen in the basement. "For weeks," Adrian went on, "someone inside Halcyon has been quietly selling pieces of this system to an outside buyer. Not stolen all at once in a dramatic smash and grab, but nibbled away in small bites. Enough to teach them how we think, without drawing attention to any one missing piece." He let that sink in. That person, Adrian said, was not a junior engineer who made a mistake. It was not a contractor who did not know better. It was not a maintenance worker with a grudge. He turned a page on the lectern. "It was our Vice President of Strategic Development," he said, "Martin Kane." The reaction was immediate. Gasps, shouts, a few curses. Someone dropped a pen that clattered loudly on the floor. In several rows, hands flew to mouths. In others, people leaned forward, hungry for more detail. On the screen, Martin's corporate headshot flashed up. The same photo from the website. Perfect hair, bright smile. Adrian tapped the remote. The image changed to a still pulled from last night's vault footage. Martin on the floor, face twisted, ring flashing on his hand. The contrast was painful, almost obscene. "He has been taken into custody," Adrian said. "Law enforcement is involved. So are the agencies that oversee our federal contracts. There will be legal consequences. There will be investigations. That is the front story." He paused, then shook his head slightly. "But this is not just a story about one man who sold his integrity," he said. "It is also about the people he used to try to cover his tracks." Miles shifted in his seat. Sweat glistened along his hairline. "Martin did not act alone," Adrian said. "He needed help to create distractions, to cause minor crises that would occupy attention while he accessed the system. He needed someone to sabotage our infrastructure and then point at someone else." He changed the slide again. A log snippet appeared on the screen. Not everyone in the room could read it, but the name at the top was clear enough. Miles Thornton. Murmurs rose. Heads turned toward the third row. Miles went pale. He half stood and then seemed to think better of it and sank back down. Two security staff near the back began to move down the aisle. Miles Thornton altered environmental controls on the executive level. Adrian said, his tone still steady. He did so at Martin's direction, then attempted to shift responsibility to someone he thought could not fight back. The room had gone very still. "We are a company built on trust," Adrian said. "Trust in systems, trust in teams. Those two men broke that trust." The security staff reached Miles. One of them leaned down, speaking quietly. Miles shook his head once, lips moving fast, but the guard's hand on his arm did not loosen. They guided him out, eyes of hundreds following. Adrian did not watch them go. He looked at the rest of the room. "I am not going to tell you that everything is fine," he said. "You are too smart to believe that. What I am going to tell you is that while those two were trying to sell what you built, someone else was standing in their way." He glanced toward the wings. Ethan's stomach dropped. "Most of you know him, if you know him at all, as the guy who shows up when a light flickers or a vent rattles," Adrian said. "You see him in the hall and maybe nod, maybe do not. He is part of the background that keeps this place running." He extended a hand. "Ethan Reyes," he said. Come out here." The sound in the room shifted again from shock to a kind of buzzing curiosity. For a heartbeat, Ethan considered staying where he was. The shadow near the wall felt safer than the circle of light on the stage. Then he stepped forward. The stage lights hit his eyes like a physical thing. He blinked against the brightness. The air up here felt warmer than it had in the vault, warmer even than the conference room had yesterday. From this vantage point, the room was a sea of faces. Some he recognized in a vague way. Others he had never seen. All of them were looking at him now. He walked to stand beside Adrian. Up close, Adrian's expression held a flicker of something that might have been pride. "This is the man Martin and Miles tried to blame," Adrian said. "They built a story where a maintenance technician recently fired used his limited access to compromise Sentinel Grid. They prepared slides, logs. They were ready to show all of you how it was his fault." Someone in the back called out, "We saw the email." "I know you did," Adrian said. "You were supposed to." He clicked the remote. The screen behind them changed again. Ethan's old military badge photo appeared. The Rampart logo, the clearance list, the words Cyber Defense Architect. A murmur rolled through the audience like a wave. "Ethan is not just a guy with a wrench," Adrian said. "Before he came here, he built systems designed to protect critical infrastructure. He designed defenses that made it harder for the worst people in the world to cause harm." Ethan shifted his weight, feeling every eye on him. "He left that world for reasons that are his to share or not," Adrian said. "What matters to you is that when he came to Halcyon, he took a job that paid less and gave him more time, and then he did it without complaint. First and last out. No fuss, no credit." He looked at Ethan for a moment, then back at the crowd. "Yesterday morning, when that boardroom was sweating and everyone wanted someone to blame, I asked who was responsible," Adrian said. Ethan stepped forward. He took the hit to protect people with families and mortgages and kids in school. He did it knowing it would cost him his job. The memory of that room flickered in Ethan's mind. The heat, the silence, the sound of his own voice saying, "I am." "Last night," Adrian continued, "when we traced an active breach into our most secure systems, Ethan could have walked away. He had been humiliated in front of the top floor. He had every reason to say, 'This is not my problem anymore.'" Adrian's voice tightened by a fraction. "Instead," he said, "he walked into the heart of that system and stopped the breach in under 30 seconds. Then he physically intercepted the man who was about to walk out with our core encryption in his hand." On the screen, a still from the vault footage appeared. Ethan on one knee, holding Martin down the laptop, opened the port connected. Ethan wanted to look away. He made himself keep his eyes forward. "I do not believe in heroes in suits," Adrian said. "I believe in the ones who show up when things break." He let that sit. "Ethan's name will not be on any indictment," he said. "It will be on something else." He turned slightly to face Ethan fully. "Effective immediately," Adrian said, and his voice carried to every corner of the room. "Ethan Reyes is appointed Chief Security Officer of Halcyon Dynamics. He will have authority over Sentinel Grid and every security protocol we run. He will report directly to me." For a moment, there was no sound. Then someone in the back started clapping. It spread, from scattered hands to full rows. The noise rose filled the auditorium, bounced off the high ceiling. A few people stood. More followed. The wave moved forward. Ethan's throat tightened. He swallowed against it. He saw Dr. Evans from research in one of the front rows, eyes wet, clapping harder than most. Next to her, a young engineer with a Rampart pin on his lapel stood with his hands over his head, cheering. In the middle rows, some of the maintenance crew were on their feet, grinning like someone had finally let them in on a joke. Adrian leaned in just enough that only Ethan could hear. "You earned this," he said. "Not because I said so. Because when it counted, you did exactly what we needed, even when every metric said you did not have to." Ethan nodded once. On the edge of his vision, he saw Turner standing at the back, hands shoved in his pockets, a small, crooked smile on his face. The applause washed over him loud and unreal. He stood there under the lights, the weight of a new badge on his chest, and tried to get his breathing under control. The applause thinned by degrees, like rain easing off a roof. People began to sit again. A few kept clapping longer than they needed to, palms red, faces bright. Conversation sparked in pockets across the room, low at first, then louder as the shock turned into a rough kind of excitement. Ethan stood there under the lights with Adrian beside him, the new badge cool against his chest. When the noise settled enough, Adrian spoke again. "We will send a full report to all of you," he said. "You deserve to know what happened and what comes next. For now, I want you to understand one thing. You were not almost undone by a flaw in your work. You were almost undone by people who thought you would not notice what they took. He looked out over the crowd, then gave a small nod. You noticed, he said. We will be better for it. He stepped back from the lectern. The lights dimmed just a little. A hum of talk rose again as people began to file out, some already turning to each other, with questions, others heading straight for the exits in tight groups. Backstage, a door opened. A drip of warm air rolled in. Adrian touched Ethan's elbow, a quiet nudge. Stay a minute, he said. He walked off stage and disappeared into the cluster of executives on the side aisle. Several moved toward him at once, talking fast. He listened, expression unreadable. On stage, Ethan remained for a moment, watching the river of people pour out. A few spotted him and lifted hands in small waves. Someone from facilities gave him a thumbs up. One of the younger programmers mimed tipping an invisible hard hat. He stepped away from the lights and into the wing. Dr. Evans appeared at his side, slightly out of breath, a visitor badge still dangling from her jacket from some lab she had come from. My brother worked Rampart, she said without introduction. Her eyes were brighter than the overhead bulbs. He used to talk about arrays who saw things 2 screens before anyone else. I never put it together until just now. Ethan searched her face, then remembered a man from years ago who had eaten stale pretzels in a windowless room and laughed at bad jokes at 3 in the morning. Daniel Evans, he said. She nodded quickly. He is the only one who could make that coffee taste worse than it already did. A breath of something like a laugh broke out of him. He said you saved his career once, she went on. You covered for a mistake he made in a patch he pushed too fast. He was going to tell you that when he saw you again. He would be very smug if he knew you were here right now. Ethan swallowed. He was the one who caught the loop in that power grid model, he said. We all would have looked stupid in front of a lot of colonels. They shared a brief, fragile smile. Then someone called her name and she touched his arm. We are lucky you ended up in our building, she said, even if we were slow to notice. She disappeared into the flow of people. A small knot of maintenance techs waited near the exit. One of them, a tall woman with a smear of paint on her sleeve, stepped forward. Boss man now, huh? She said, not quite teasing. Let us not use that word, Ethan replied. You ever need ductwork checked, you know who to call, she said. It goes both ways. He nodded, a quiet understanding passing between them that had nothing to do with titles. When the auditorium finally emptied, the room felt enormous and hollow. The echo of voices lingered for a moment, then faded. Ethan found Adrian near the front row alone now, one hand braced on the back of a chair. The tension that had held his shoulders rigid earlier had drained a little, leaving him looking almost tired. How does it feel? Adrian asked. Having 1,000 people stare at you for something other than a firing. Strange, Ethan said. Loud. You will get used to it, Adrian replied. Maybe not the loud part. They stood in silence for a second, watching the last of the staff file out through the far doors. Come on, Adrian said. I want to show you something before the day gets eaten. They took a private elevator up. This one went past the executive floor, past the Sentinel grid level, all the way to a number Ethan had never seen lit before. The doors opened onto a short landing and then onto the roof. The wind met them first, cool and clean tasting of wet concrete, and a hint of salt from the bay. The sky was a low ceiling of cloud, but breaks had started to show thin veins of blue weaving through the gray. Seattle stretched out in every direction. The streets below were slick and dark, crisscrossed with lines of cars. The bay was a sheet of cold metal in the distance, ferries cutting pale paths across it. The tower's glass walls rose around them, framing the view. Ethan stepped to the edge where the safety glass rose from the concrete. He set his palms lightly against it. The surface was cool. It looks smaller from up here, he said. It always does, Adrian replied, until you go back down. The wind tugged at their clothes. Somewhere far below, a siren wailed, then faded. When I was 23, Adrian said, I slept in the back of a sedan in a lot 2 blocks from here. Ethan glanced at him. Adrian's gaze was on the skyline. I had a company that was more idea than product, Adrian went on. Too much debt, not enough code that worked. Everyone who had ever thought I was smart had stopped returning my calls. He hooked one thumb into his pocket, shoulders loose now, as if the story had been waiting just under his skin for a long time. I parked near a diner, he said. You know the kind. Neon sign that flickers. Coffee that tastes like burned hope. The owner found me one morning when he came to take out the trash. I thought he was going to tell me to move along. What did he do? Ethan asked. He brought me a plate of eggs, Adrian said. Then he put me to work washing dishes. No questions, no application. He paid me in cash and let me sleep in the storage room until I could afford a real bed again. The wind shifted. A gull wheeled its cry thin. Months later, Adrian said, when the first check from a real contract hit my account, I went back to pay him what he had given me plus interest. The diner was closed. A neighbor told me he had died 2 weeks earlier. He paused, jaw working once. I do not remember his name, Adrian said. It bothers me more than losing the money ever did. He turned then, leaning one hip against the glass so he could see Ethan clearly. Yesterday, he said, when you walked into that boardroom and took responsibility, I saw his face instead of yours. A man who had nothing to gain and did the decent thing anyway. Ethan looked down at his hands on the glass. A faint reflection of his bandage showed between his fingers. I am not the man who pulled you out of a car, he said. No, Adrian agreed. You are the one who reminded me why I built this place the way I did, or the way I said I did. Somewhere along the way, deals and cycles and growth charts got loud in my head. It helps to have someone around who still hears the quiet parts. They let the wind fill the space between them for a moment. You know this promotion, Ethan said. Some people will say you did it as a stunt, to fix optics. Some people say a lot of things, Adrian replied. You can spend your life trying to argue with them, or you can let the work make the point. He straightened and reached into his pocket. He produced a badge. It was heavier than the temporary one Ethan wore. The plastic had a metallic sheen, and the letters along the bottom were engraved deep enough to catch even the soft rooftop light. Chief Security Officer. He held it out on his palm. This one is yours, Adrian said, not alone. Ethan took it. The surface was smooth and cool, the weight solid. He felt the edges press into his skin. That quick, he said. You had this made overnight. I ordered it the day I pulled your old file, Adrian said. I canceled it when you quit that world. I ordered it again yesterday morning. You like hedging your bets, Ethan said. I like being ready to be wrong, Adrian replied. Ethan unclipped the black badge from his pocket and replaced it with the new one. The clip clicked softly into place. For a moment, he felt the odd sensation of two lives sliding over each other, then settling. Adrian nodded, satisfied. Call your daughter, he said. Tell her you fixed the big building. Ethan had already felt for his phone before the sentence ended. He moved a few steps away, giving himself a patch of space at the edge of the roof. The wind tugged at his shirt. The call rang twice. Dad, Lily said, voice bright and immediate. Hey, Bug, he said. How are you breathing? Good, she said. Mrs. C made pancakes. They looked like clouds. He smiled. The tension in his shoulders eased another notch. You know how you draw the building with the clouds on top? He said. The big one, she said. With you in front. That one, he said. Turns out they want me inside now, making sure it is safe, not just fixing vents. So you fixed it, she said. We stopped something bad from happening, he said. A lot of people helped. I just happened to be the one in the server closet when the right door opened. He heard her little huff of amusement. Can I come see it? She asked. Not the closet, the top. He glanced at Adrian, who raised an eyebrow as if he already knew the question. Bring her up when it is not raining sideways, Adrian said. Ethan brought the phone back to his ear. Yeah, he said. You can come see it. I will show you the lobby. Maybe the really high windows. I will even introduce you to the man who thinks my coffee choices are bad. Is he nice? She asked. Sometimes, Ethan said. She giggled. Are you coming home for dinner? She asked. Would not miss it, he said. We can celebrate. With pancakes again? She said. With whatever we can afford that looks like pancakes, he said. She made a content sound. Love you, Dad, she said. Love you too, he answered. He let the line go quiet first on her end, then slid the phone back into his pocket. The city stretched away under the low clouds. The wind had softened. A thin band of pale light sat just above the horizon. Adrian pushed away from the glass. You should go, he said. The building will still be here when you get back. Ethan nodded. They walked together to the elevator housing. At the door, Adrian paused. One more thing, he said. He did not reach for a speech. He simply held out his hand. Ethan looked at it, then took it. The grip was firm, equal. Welcome to the part where people actually know your name, Adrian said. That is optional, Ethan replied. A little late for that, Adrian said. They let go. Inside the elevator, the brushed metal walls reflected two men who had not expected to be standing side by side a day ago. The car began to descend, the motion so smooth, it was almost imperceptible. Ethan glanced down at the badge on his chest, the letters catching the light. In his wallet, the black access card sat behind the faded photo of Lily. In his mind, the Sentinel grid map glowed not as a threat now, but as something he was responsible for. When the doors opened in the lobby, the noise of the building flowed back in. People moved through the space arms full of laptops and notebooks. Conversations rose and fell. Somewhere a vent clicked quietly as it adjusted to a new set point. The systems hummed beneath it all. Ethan stepped out. On his way past the security desk, Turner straightened. "Nice badge," Turner said. "New job," Ethan answered. "Same doors," Turner said. "More keys," Ethan replied. He walked to the revolving doors, then stopped. The glass near the corner reflected his image back at him. For the first time in a long while, the man he saw there looked like someone who belonged both in the ducts and in the rooms with glass walls. He reached into his bag, pulled out Lily's drawing, and smoothed its edges. The colors were a little smudged now, but the words at the bottom were still clear. Superfixer. He folded it once neat and slid it into the inside pocket of his shirt, close to where the new badge rested. Then he stepped through the doors and out into the rain, the tower at his back humming with a rhythm he now shared. Thank you so much for listening to today's story. If this story resonated with you or made you reflect, I'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to share them in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss the next story.